I can only imagine. And this is a close. Someone got this and I would yeah, I mean, thankfully I got out after all stuff happened, but yeah, so like kind of it's just like yeah, it was all the rivers. Yeah. I mean, I was fine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Writers Project. We're happy to see you all. I'm Eric Deldo. I'm a student intern under Dr. Kathy McCoy for the Writers Project this semester. We would like to thank Professor Rebecca Pelchar, curator of the Visual Arts Gallery, for discovering Amy Kahng and bringing her to her exhibit to our campus. We would also like to thank the administration, the Faculty Student Association, the SUNY Adirondack Foundation, the IT department, and our facilities department for supporting this program. Thank you, everyone. It is my honor to introduce our featured speaker today, our historian Amy Kahng, a doctoral candidate in art history and criticism at Stony Brook University, and a Patricia and Philip Frost pre-doctoral fellow at the Smithsonian American Army. Kahng examines 20th century Asian American artists and their relationships to land and landscape. She also researches global contemporary art, modern and contemporary art in Korea, and the transnational feminist art practices. She curated the magnificent exhibit in the gallery today, and she is ready to talk with us about miscommunication, language, and power in contemporary art. The exhibition considers spoken and written language as defined by our national and cultural linguistic traditions like Korean, Spanish, Portuguese, and indigenous language like Bete, Cherokee, and Mara, but also American Sign Language, performative body language, academic speak, and artificial intelligence and voice recognition program. Please welcome Amy Kahng.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that really generous introduction. As Eric mentioned, I'm Amy Kahng. I'm a curator, PhD candidate at Stony Brook, and I also just wanted to thank Dr. Kathy McCoy for inviting me here today, and Rebecca Pelchar for inviting me to bring my exhibition here today. And so I guess I'll just tell you a little bit about the kind of impetus or the background of how this exhibition got started. So I've been conceptualizing this exhibition for several years before it took its first form in 2021. And I guess the kind of seed, oh, this needs to be higher. The seed for the exhibition comes from a little bit of a personal place. So I have a little, oh no, oh good. Silly photo of myself. So I've been thinking about language, and in some ways language is colonial power since childhood. I grew up in the US to Korean immigrant parents, and you might think that I would be someone who would be fluent in Korean because of growing up with these immigrant parents, but in fact, both my parents can speak Korean, but we had an English only household. My parents felt the need, oh, I'm so sorry. They didn't really feel the need to teach me Korean because we lived in the United States where English is the norm, and they wanted me to have, fully native fluency. So then after undergrad, when I moved to South Korea, this ended up, posing a problem. I had this really immensely challenging task of trying to learn Korean as an adult. But then when I was in South Korea, I actually realized I could often get by speaking English more frequently. And I had countless Korean friends who also were very fluent English speakers. And so my experience with the English language in the US and abroad has revealed to me just how much the English language is privileged, not only in our country, but also globally. And so this brings me to, I guess, the exhibition's thesis about how power is inherent in language. So we have this exhibition, my exhibition, Miscommunication, Language and Power in Contemporary Art. This features video, sculpture, drawing, and interactive media works by 15 artists who examine the ways in which normative language is privileged over non-normative languages. So when I say normative language, I mean non-accented, non-dialected English. And when I say non-normative language, I mean accented or English dialect or languages other than English. So the curated selection of works in this exhibition is made by a collection of mostly young and emerging artists. I was able to first install this exhibition because in 2020, I was awarded the SUNY PACC Prize, the Prize for Performing Art Creation and Curation, which then gave me the funding to be able to jumpstart this project. And so 1 year following, from November 2021 to March 22, the exhibition took place at the Paul W. Zucchero Gallery at Stony Brook University. And so here are some images from that iteration. And then since then, with the help of the SUNY Chancellor's Office, this exhibition has been able to tour 4 additional SUNY campuses, including the Gannett Gallery at SUNY Polytechnic, the Marion Gallery at SUNY Fredonia in Fredonia, New York, and then here at the Visual Arts Gallery at SUNY Adirondack. And the tour will finish next summer at the Dorsky Museum at SUNY New Paltz. So I will go through and present on some of the works in the exhibition today. So to start off, we have this video work by Han Johan. It's called Follow Me, and it's also all behind you on the screen above. So this video work is a work about how English as a second language programs are ubiquitous internationally, and these programs can start from infancy, for example, in South Korea. And this work is actually one that I encountered in Seoul, South Korea, and was one of the inspirations that got this exhibition going. And so in this video artwork, you'll hear the sound of an English language learning audio track, and then you'll see an oral surgical procedure that's commonly performed in East Asia. This pseudoscientific surgery is believed to help improve English language. It's called a frenulotomy, and I'll show a little excerpt of the video. And I'll warn that there's a little bit of some surgical footage that's a little gruesome if you're squeamish. Oh no, there's no sound. Oh, I forgot to think about sound. Oh, it should work now. Oh, great.
Chapter 2. Unit 1. Follow me. How do you do?
Nice to meet you.
I'm glad to know you.
I'm very glad to meet you.
I'm honored to meet you.
The pleasure is mine. Unit 2.
She follow me. May I introduce myself?
I should introduce myself.
How do you do? My name is Minho Kim.
I live with my parents.
I'm the oldest son.
I'm the oldest daughter.
I'm single. I'm single.
So in Han's video artwork, this work emphasizes the way that the English language is so privileged in countries across the world that it's become a necessity not only to begin learning English as a young child or a young infant, but even in some instances undergo a surgical procedure in an attempt to achieve fluency. Here we have a few more installation views of several of the works that was at Care, and I'll talk about some of these video works. So these are some still images from 2 video works in the exhibition. We have Kim Schoen's The Horseshoe Effect and Martine Sims' Notes on Gesture. Both of these works are on a loop on the screen on the right. So later, if you want to watch the whole thing, you can. And these works reveal the ways that individuals move between their colloquial or regional English dialects and gestures into an academic English in order to achieve success in the scholarly and professional realms. Sims' work on the bottom right is a video that features an actress, and she is performing slang and visual gestures that are commonly used in African American Vernacular English, or AAVE. And Sims here reveals how spoken African American Vernacular English and gesture are often co-opted by non-Black communities for social clout, but then are also deemed as unprofessional or improper or incorrect English usage when used by Black individuals. And then Kim Schoen's work on the top left, The Horseshoe Effect. This work also features an actress, but here the actress is presenting a very academic, highbrow sort of lecture as she walks through this scene. But then on a closer listen, you'll realize that she's actually speaking gibberish, and she's just improvising what she's saying on the spot to sound scholarly. And she's using the gestures and intonation of scholarly authority. So in this work, Schoen brings to light the ways that knowledge and the power that comes with knowledge and scholarly authority are also steeped in performance. So we can watch a little excerpt from Kim Schoen's video.
So when one is looking for different kinds of devices, different ways to stack building blocks of prosperity on one top of the other, one has to then get the question, is what's happening underneath the water all of that cycle? And yet we start to understand it becomes transnational marriage that people are wondering if they can ride a
You get a little taste of that. You can watch the whole video afterwards if you'd like. And then another video work we have included in this exhibition is Museum Manners by Jisoo Chung. And in this video work, the artist narrates museum visitor rules into her iPhone, things like, speak quietly, don't touch the artwork. But then as she is speaking in English, which is her second language, the iPhone, Apple's like Siri, misdictates what she's saying. And so because of these like programmed pronunciation biases that are, inherent in Apple and technology that we all use, these transcriptions then become very incorrect and comical. And then Chung tries to frustratingly act out these incorrect transcriptions by Siri. And so this, in this work, the artist illustrates how linguistic biases are even reinscribed in technology. So we can watch a little bit of a clip here.
touching with your hand, touching with your hand, touching with your hand may cause damage to the artwork. Period.
Moving into some of the sculptures in this exhibition, we have Don Gim's series, Names I Had You Call Me. And so this series is about how the artist chose various English language names after immigrating to Canada from South Korea when she was 10 years old. And so these names that she was, taking on, these like nicknames, she took on because they were considered, easier for, local Americans to be able to pronounce. And so each one of these sculptures is named after one of the artist's many Anglophone names chosen over the years living in North America. So we have here Erin, which is behind us. Also, Ashley, which Ashley is not on view right now. She's going through a little bit of some conservation issues. And then Catherine, which is the like fork-like looking sculpture also behind us. And so each of these works is actually a leather covered muffler. And so these are, you know, just 3 of like dozens of names that she took on over the years. And actually, when I first met Dawn Gim, she was going by Camilla. So in this work, we can see how, you know, erasing one's real and cultural name for one that is normative is often a very common immigrant experience. And then Erin and Ashley both have a sound component, so you can go up to the sculptures and listen to them. And the sounds are where she enlisted the help of a handful of other women artists to record themselves making car sounds. And so the reason that she was, you know, thinking about the mufflers and the car sounds is because to Dawn, the onomatopoeia of broom was a very distinctly American sound. In Korean, it's like barum. So it's, you know, different. So to her, when she hears vroom, it's like very American. And so then we can listen to some of the car sounds here. I don't have the broom one, but I have, here's a couple more installations. That's kind of the sound of a car like idling. And then here are just some of the works again, you can see as they were exhibited in the first iteration of the Zucchini Gallery. And then moving back into some video works, this exhibition features a lot of video. We have this 2-channel work by Christine Sun Kim and Thomas Nader. Christine Sun Kim is probably one of the most well-known artists in this exhibition. She was in the last Whitney Biennial. And so this 2-channel video work, which you can also see on the right or your left here, this work draws on sign language teacher Andreas Kostro's observations, where he observed that deaf students can more easily describe the interiors of rooms and the objects within the rooms in comparison to their hearing peers. And so facial expressions are really essential to conveying meaning in American Sign Language. And so the facial expressions are able to help contextualize the hand gestures. And so Kim's ASL facial gestures nuance the spatial and tactile qualities of various everyday objects in great detail. So the work demonstrates that the use of ASL goes beyond just, you know, replacing the spoken word, and that this work challenges the designation of verbal language as the privileged and frequently only form of communication in institutional settings. So we can watch a couple little excerpts. So this is conference table at a financial firm, and this is her performing it, with Thomas Mader doing the like helping hands version. Other one, this one they switch. So one artist is standing in front, one behind, and the artist behind is doing the hand ASL motions while the artist standing in front is doing the facial expressions and contextualize those hand motions. There's many more of these examples in the work also, if you have time to look at it after. And so then I'll talk about one of the most eye-catching works we have in the exhibition, a work from the series 9th to Olympic by Dulce Soledad Ibarra, and that work is behind us, the Big Juntos. And so for this series, Ibarra worked closely with artisans from the renowned Piñata district in downtown Los Angeles. And she worked with them to confront complicated colonial histories around the piñata. So I didn't know this before working on this exhibition, but the piñata actually has a kind of more sinister history. It was originally a tool of Spanish colonization and Catholic assimilation. So the 7 points on the traditional piñata were originally used to symbolize the 7 deadly sins to teach indigenous children, Catholicism. And so now, this popular paper mache structure has attained this renewed cultural resonance as a celebratory object, largely within Mexican American communities in the US. And so this artist series, the piñata spell phrases such as juntos, which means together, exhibited here, con ganas, meaning with your all, pasale, come on in. And so these phrases kind of speak to the collective resilience of Latinx and Spanish-speaking communities in the US. Oh, I included some images of us trying to install it on these very high ceilings. It was a much easier install here. Thank you to Rebecca. So then continuing on this note of the histories and violences of language colonization, we have here the series Connaissance du Monde, or World Knowledge, by Frederick Bourley-Bourberay. This work is actually hidden behind here, almost exactly like one-to-one. This artist actually just recently had a survey exhibition at MoMA in New York this past year. It was actually quite a large exhibition with a catalog. And so in these brightly colored drawings, Bourberay created a written pictographic syllabic version of his native Bete language, which is an indigenous language that does not have a written system. The Bete people are one of several indigenous populations in the Côte d'Ivoire that were colonized by the French from the 18th century into the 20th century. And so through creating this textual image, like visualization of a language that was before, only oral, the artist seeks to preserve this endangered language, the cultural myths and cultural heritage of the Bete people. And then along the edges of each of the drawings, there are phrases in French and Ivorian Creole, some kind of wordplay that he includes also. And then another example around this theme of colonization through language. We have, in the Portuguese context, this work called Portuguese Vowels by Clarissa Towson. And this work is, I think, currently to the side, next to the screen. So this work addresses the colonial histories of linguistic oppression in Brazil. So it's a series of sugar sculptures that were molded from the interior of the artist's mouth as she enunciated each of the Portuguese vowels, A, E, I, O, U. And so this gesture of mouthing these sounds is kind of a way to reenact the language assimilation of indigenous people in Brazil who were forced to adopt Portuguese as their language. And the artist chose to make these casts in sugar to connect this language colonization also to the longer and broader historical context of genocide and enslavement within the transatlantic slave trade. No, I think maybe the image isn't here, but another work that we have that's an instance of language resilience after histories of language and cultural decimation. We have a work called My Grandmother's Lingo by Angelina Joshua and Jake Duzinski. It's on the side here on this computer screen. This is a digitally animated documentary game, and it helps to teach, it's used to teach the players the endangered Aboriginal language called Mara. So the artist Angelina Joshua's grandmother is one of only 3 remaining individuals who can fluently speak Mara. In the 18th century, there were between 350 and 750 languages spoken in Australia. But oppressive colonial regulations only allowed English in schools and public spaces. And so that resulted in the decimation of close to 90% of these languages. So these languages each, carry the culture and tradition within them. And so the loss of each of these languages has carried greater ramifications for the ability to preserve history and maintain sovereignty for the Aboriginal people. It's really a beautiful game. Please feel free to try it out later. It's also a web link. You can try it out at home too. So I've given an overview of most of the works exhibited here today. I'll just conclude on this note. In recent years in the US, the emergence of white nationalism has led to an aggressive rise on attacks of individuals who are speaking languages other than English in public spaces. Political leaders state things such as, "This is America, we speak English," even though the United States actually does not, in fact, have an official language. So now, more than ever, non-normative languages are vulnerable. And so it's in this context that this exhibition seeks to emphasize the ways that power is inherent in language. Thank you so much. And I will be happy to take any questions now. If you have your hand up, yes.
Yeah. So, how do you feel inspired in your work?
How did I get inspired in this work? Yeah, so I mean, there was this sort of like way that I've been thinking about language my whole life from, growing up in this English speaking home and seeing the ways that, I was encouraged to kind of assimilate and speak, native English. But I think the kind of like checklist or the list of artworks that I started putting together started from first viewing Follow Me by Han Johan, the work with the babies speaking English. I saw that work in South Korea, and I thought it was just like very evocative and very kind of had this clear message. And then after having that kind of sticking in the back of my mind, I came across other works that kind of were dealing with similar theme. And then from there, I kind of built out the exhibition. Yes.
What was your procedure for picking the artwork in the exhibit? Because I would think you'd have a lot of, did you already have relationships with some of these artists, or you said you'd seen the Follow Me before, but how did some of the other pieces end up?
Yeah, so some of them I came across just like in other exhibitions. I'm like looking around thinking about them. Like Christine Sun Kim is quite a famous artist, so I've seen her work in multiple spaces, and she's probably the most famous deaf artist. And so just like that was kind of an obvious to me work that was fitting alongside this theme. And then some of the other works I came across just like trying to do research around language and art, thinking about and then other artists I've asked like friends about, who they've been seeing recently that are maybe doing work around this. And then some of the artists, I did have personal connections with, and I was friends with from my time actually in Los Angeles. Many of these artists are actually LA-based artists. But yeah, I think that one of the things that was challenging for me is that if I just thought about the exhibition in terms of language, there's a lot of works that could fit under that kind of umbrella, but I really wanted to keep the exhibition around this sort of like colonial and like power aspect to language. So that's kind of how this show got, I guess, cut down and shaped into what it is now.
So are you an artist yourself, or and then how did you, if you're not, how did you get into curating art shows that do what you did?
Yeah, I'm definitely not an artist myself. So much so that it's a little bit of a problem because I don't know that much about artistic process. And so I need to spend more time like learning from artists because it is important to understand that process. But how did I get into curating? I mean, I studied art history in undergrad, and I knew that I was interested in curatorial work and museum work. So I started interning at institutions in LA and New York. And then from there, I just realized it was something I was interested in. And I just tried to kind of take opportunities where I could find them to be able to, curate my own things. I think if any of you are interested in curatorial work, it's really great for you to kind of start thinking about maybe an exhibition that you're considering. And that way, when some sort of opportunity arises, you already have the proposal that you can, try to get shown. I don't know if that answers your question. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so the surgery is called a frenulotomy, and it's actually also performed here, when babies are like tongue-tied sometimes, whether or not that's really a necessary surgery, even when babies are tongue-tied, is a little bit like be debated. But that surgery is really common in East Asian countries. I think a little bit less so now, but maybe more like with my generation and maybe potentially like Gen Zs, but maybe now like a little bit less common. But the idea is that if you do this kind of like cut there, your tongue is able to be more like fluid and be able to like pronounce another language more, I guess, easily. I gave a tour of this exhibition actually at Stony Brook and was talking about this, and one of the students raised his hand and he was like, yeah, I had that done. It is like pseudoscientific. So it's like there's no actual evidence that shows that it really helps with pronunciation, but people are wanting to do whatever they can to get their kids a leg up. Yes.
So I like I would say English is my first language, and I know like a little bit of Spanish. But I know for me, like I'm limited in the fact that I can't do like the children noise. So I was wondering, like, is there anything like that possibly limited me from learning?
Yeah, I mean, my pronunciation was perhaps better than some of the other students just because I heard it like, around me when my parents were speaking, but my pronunciation is really horrible still. Also, like Korean has like a lot of the vowels are slightly different, and the consonants are also like, there's consonants that are like in between consonants that we have. So that was, hard in terms of pronunciation. But really the hardest thing for Korean, I don't know if any of you learned it, or Japanese is quite similar too. Just like the structure of the language is completely different. And so that was actually the hardest part, was trying to square that. Yeah, I really wish my parents had taught me as a kid, because it would have just been so much easier.
And what's their response? Have you talked to your parents about that? And what's their response? Are they're still steadfast in their approach, or they changed their thoughts?
So I think in the way that I tell the story, I kind of make myself a victim, but my mom would say, like, you didn't even want to learn Korean. Like, she'd be like, I kind of tried, but you didn't really want to do it. But I think that there's like two-way street. But yeah, my mom, since now that I actually do speak Korean because I learned it abroad, it is really strange to be able to understand what my mom is saying as she's talking to like her sisters and stuff. So she does feel a little bit more self-conscious now because I understand everything she's saying, whereas I didn't before. Oh, yes.
Let me I'd like to ask you about the mufflers, if I could.
Yes.
Is the idea that power structures muffle our voices? Is that?
So there's a lot of different kinds of, I guess, layers to the mufflers. Dawn likes to think about a lot of different kinds of intersexual power structures. So actually, when she was thinking about the muffler initially, she was thinking about it in more of like a feminist context, and she used these like women's voices purposefully, because she was thinking about the way that women are kind of muffled in society. But then there's also like, all these other ways that the work is like dealing with, her own language experience. So yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of like layers to the work.
This would be really neat if you could get an ASL interpreter to stand beside you.
Like some places are doing that more now, but we just need the funding for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there now.
You guys can ask, Dr. Steves. Have you ever considered that? After. Okay.
Any other questions? Well, I hope you all have a chance to stick around and look at some of the works more closely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amy. Before everybody takes off, I just want to remind you, we have a really full slate for the Writers Project for October. So next week on the 9th is we're celebrating National Indigenous Peoples Month, and Abenaki author, storyteller, American Book Award editor, and fiction writer and poet, and the inaugural poet laureate of Saratoga Springs, Joe Bruchac, will be here. He's wildly popular with crowds, so I hope you'll make an effort to come. And the language people again should think about that. On the 23rd, we have our retired professor, Stuart Bartow, who's a fantastic poet, is going to do a combination haiku reading and workshop. So bring paper and a pencil, and we'll do some fun stuff in that one. And on the 30th, right in time for Halloween, we have Lanny Stabile, an LGBTQ fiction writer, whose short story collection, Something Dead in Everything, will make you laugh and cry and scratch your head. And students, I think you're going to love it. Start reading that book. Okay. Thank you so much, Amy.
Going through the gibberish one, or actually, so